For that, Emmanuel Macron. Let's bring in for the analysis James J. Townsend Jr., Senior Advisor at the Atlantic Council. James, thank you so much for being with us here in France 24. We appreciate your time. Vladimir Zelensky hailing substantive declarations on security guarantees for Ukraine. Macron saying that this multinational force would be in place led by France, UK, Poland, Italy, Turkey. What is your reaction to what we've been hearing from this coalition of the willing meeting in Paris?
Well, that's great news. It's a step forward, as they've been saying, that now we have statements of intent where nations are going to actually set to work to get the legalities done, the details done, all the things that really will support what is needed to be done for a secure guarantee that Zelensky can really depend on. So it's one more step. There is work ahead, but it's good news coming out of Paris today.
It sounds like you're signing up to what Keir Starmer was saying about there are hard yards ahead. Lots of progress needs to be made in other areas.
Well, that's exactly right. There's got to be hard decisions about, so what will these troops actually do there? Are they going to fight the Russians? Or are they going to be there just to monitor things? So there's a lot of detail like that that's important for Zelensky to hear, and for the United States too. What's the U.S. role? Is it going to be just intelligence? Are we going to be monitoring and coordinating things in terms of what the Russians may or may not be doing? And then finally, of course, the big decision is going to be where are the Russians on this? They've said they don't want to have any NATO or NATO nation troops in Ukraine. So what will happen if the Russians say niet?
That is the question, James, isn't it? That is really the question. I'm wondering what you make of the fact that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner attended, first of all, but also decided to be there to take questions afterwards. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's very important, particularly after what's happened with Venezuela and the concerns that a lot of allies have about the course of the United States. Are we going to be now doing nothing but Western Hemisphere work, or are we still involved with Ukraine? And I think this was an important point that those two representatives of the president were there. They didn't provide a lot of information on what the U.S. role would be, but they highlighted the idea that there's going to be a prosperity aspect to this too for the Ukraine people in terms of jobs, rehabilitation, rebuilding. That's an important part of this, whatever agreement comes our way.
Indeed, I'm thinking back to the promise of homes for heroes at the end of World War II in Britain, for instance, where I grew up, where I come from. And of course, that didn't really materialize in anything that made people feel that they were well looked after for the sacrifices they made. Are you thinking that with Witkoff and Kushner, with Trump's business acumen, I'll use that phrase, do you feel this could be something extremely positive for Ukrainian people?
Well, I really do, actually. And I say that because I think the president sees that there's money in it to be made for the U.S. In other words, there's going to be U.S. companies involved. There's going to be U.S. financing involved. And frankly, that's needed too. You don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, as we say here in the U.S. So I think this has got a good potential to actually happen once peace is established, because I think the president sees there's something in it for the United States too.
And as you say, it depends what Vladimir Putin says, doesn't it? Do you think if Putin is negative on this one, it might at last turn Trump's kind of, I don't know, almost kind of enamored view that he has of Putin? Clearly, he respects Putin. He likes Putin. Some say he'd like to be like Putin in some way, shape or form. Perhaps that's a reach and too far. But, do you think if this time Putin says niet, Trump will actually wake up and smell the coffee?
I don't think so. I think normally you would certainly assume that that's what one would do, really put on the pressure. But that's not been the course that the president has taken. I think what'll have to happen is he says, Putin says, "Niet, I'm not going to allow this to happen," and so it'll be back to the drawing board on security guarantees that are something that Putin could live with. But we've got to get Putin to the table to begin with. There's a lot of second guessing. What would he want? What would he not want? What would be a good compromise with him? But we're not going to know until he actually feels that's in his favor to go ahead and talk about peace. Right now, he doesn't see that. He's all about the battlefield. So we got to get him to the table. We got to put these proposals in front of him. And where there are issues, we got to work those issues to find something that everyone can live with. But it's getting him to the table that is really the biggest challenge ahead of us.
Indeed. And as you're saying that, James, that phrase of Starmer's about the hard yards ahead really rings true. In terms of what happens for Ukraine now, we report all the time about Russian bombardment of their towns and cities, their infrastructure, and people being killed. That's the reality of life that Ukrainians are facing, day in, day out, night in, night out. That's what's happening. How do they get through?
That is exactly right. That is the tragedy in all this, is as we go back and forth with drafts and try to get Putin to the table, the Ukrainians are dying every night, and this will continue. And that's the pressure Putin is putting on Zelensky and the West, saying that, look, you all can talk as much as you want, but your people are dying every night. And unless I'm satisfied, this will continue. And it's horrible pressure on Zelensky. It's horrible pressure on all of those who are trying to find peace. And yet it continues every night. And we can only hope and pray that they have the resilience to withstand this until somehow we can get Putin to the table and then resolve this war.
James J. Townsend Jr., Senior Advisor at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us here in France 24. We always appreciate your time and your analysis. James, thank you for being with us. And just a little postscript to our discussion there. Russia losing something like 90,000 troops over the past 3 months, according to Ukrainian sources. It gives you a scale of the carnage that is going on as Donald Trump used that word via Steve Witkoff to talk about his desire that the killing should stop in Ukraine.